the Minnesota Timberwolves select Zach LaVine.
Zachary Thomas LaVine, born March 10th, 1995. When you look at Zach LaVine on the surface, everything about him screams superstar potential. He has the look, the size for his position, the pedigree of a one-and-done UCLA lottery pick, the smooth shooting touch, and of course, the world-class athleticism that's arguably second to none in the NBA. Add it all together and it's easy to understand why so many people believed he would eventually become one of the faces of the league. He also had every opportunity to prove it. Chicago gave him the keys to the franchise for 8 seasons, yet during that time, the Bulls made the playoffs just once, losing in the first round. Despite that, LaVine signed a 5-year, $215 million contract extension in 2022, making him one of the highest paid guards in the league. Today, he's no longer with the team that believed in him enough to hand him that contract. Instead, he's in Sacramento, where the Kings have missed the playoffs in both of his seasons with the team. To LaVine's credit, he's been a really good player. He's a 2-time All-Star, has averaged at least 20 points in 8 of his 12 NBA seasons, and can still be an excellent second, even third option on a good team. But those superstar expectations he once carried, I think it's safe to say we've already seen his ceiling. Can he still make another All-Star team? Absolutely. But becoming a franchise-changing superstar many envisioned no longer feels realistic. Why? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Zach LaVine is a 6'5" shooting guard from Renton, Washington, who entered the NBA as one of the most gifted athletes in his draft class. While he was a highly regarded high school prospect, averaging 28.5 points per game as a senior and earning Washington Mr. Basketball honors, it was his jaw-dropping athleticism that separated him from everyone else. His dunks became must-see highlights long before he reached the NBA, and scouts believed his combination of speed, explosiveness, and shooting touch gave him one of the highest ceilings in the entire 2014 draft. He committed to UCLA, where he surprisingly came off the bench as the Bruins' 6th man. Even though he averaged just 9.4 points per game, NBA teams weren't drafting the production, they were drafting the potential. LaVine declared after 1 season and was selected 13th overall like his idol Kobe Bryant by the Minnesota Timberwolves. It didn't take long for the basketball world to understand why scouts were so intrigued. He won back-to-back slam dunk contests in his first 2 seasons, instantly becoming one of the league's biggest attractions while gradually developing into a more complete scorer. In 2017, he became the centerpiece of the Jimmy Butler trade that sent him to the Chicago Bulls. Although he was recovering from a torn ACL, the Bulls believed they had found their future franchise player. Over the next 8 seasons, LaVine evolved into one of the NBA's most talented offensive guards, making 2 All-Star teams. The only thing missing was the team success everyone expected would eventually follow. Stunt number 1, the difference between a star and a superstar. If there's one thing I've learned watching basketball over the years is that becoming a star and becoming a superstar are 2 completely different achievements. Stars put up numbers, superstars change the direction of franchises, and I think that's where Zach LaVine's career ultimately capped off at. On paper, he looked like he had everything. He could jump out the gym, score from all 3 levels, shoot the 3 at a high percentage, and put together nights where he'd make even the league's best defenders look helpless. There were seasons where he averaged 25 to over 27 points per game while shooting efficiently, and because of that, many people, including myself, were not just waiting but expecting the next leap. The problem is that leap never came. The best players in the league eventually develop something that separates them from everyone else. They have another gear when the game slows down. They make the right plays when defenses load up on them, and they consistently create easy opportunities for teammates, control the tempo, and somehow find a way to leave their fingerprints all over winning, even on nights when they can't buy a basket. LaVine never truly became that kind of player. He remained an elite scorer, but there was always something missing once the game got tight. You rarely watched him completely take over meaningful games the way superstar players eventually learn to do, or lead his team to finally being a contender. That's the difference between being capable of scoring 40 points and being the player everyone in the arena expects to score the next bucket. One is an incredible talent, the other is a franchise cornerstone. Chicago spent years hoping LaVine would eventually become that player because physically he looked like he should. Instead, what they got was a really good all-star who could fill up the stat sheet, but never consistently impose his will on games in the way true superstars do. And I don't say that to criticize him. Averaging over 20 points for 8 different seasons is something very few players ever accomplish. But when we're asking why Zach LaVine never became more than he did, I think it starts here. He had almost every measurable trait you could ask for. The one thing he never consistently showed was that extra gear that separates NBA stars from its truly elite players. Stunt number 2, 8 years is enough time. I think we can all understand that some stars don't break out until their 5th or 6th season. Others need a better coach, a different roster, or simply more experience. But eventually the excuses run out. In Zach LaVine's case, I think 8 years in Chicago was more than enough time to figure out exactly what kind of player he was. The Bulls didn't just give him an opportunity, they gave him the franchise. They committed to him after the Jimmy Butler trade, waited through his ACL recovery, handed him the keys to the offense, and eventually rewarded him with a 5-year, $215 million contract. Organizations don't make investments like that unless they believe a player can lead them somewhere. The problem is the results never match the expectations. During LaVine's 8 seasons with the Bulls, Chicago reached the playoffs just once. That appearance ended in 5 games against the Milwaukee Bucks, and outside of that season, the Bulls spent year after year missing the playoffs entirely. That's incredibly disappointing when your highest paid player is supposed to be entering his prime. Now, to be fair, LaVine didn't have perfect circumstances. Chicago dealt with injuries, questionable roster construction, coaching changes, and front office decisions that certainly didn't help. But every franchise star deals with obstacles. The players who eventually become true superstars are the ones capable of overcoming at least some of them. Instead, it always felt like LaVine's individual success and Chicago's team success existed on 2 separate paths. He'd average 25 points, shoot efficiently, make another all-star team, and then you'd look at the standings and the Bulls again were hovering around 500. Even when the organization brought in DeMar DeRozan to ease the burden, the pairing never produced what many hoped. I actually think that duo exposed something important. Both were excellent scorers, both could make difficult shots, but neither consistently functioned as the kind of franchise centerpiece capable of carrying a team over the hump. Instead of creating a superstar pairing, Chicago ended up having 2 very good stars whose strengths overlapped. After nearly a decade, I don't think it's unfair to judge the results. 8 years is a long sample size in the NBA, and by the end of it, the Bulls had their answer. Zach LaVine wasn't the player who could change the direction of an organization. He was simply a very talented player who needed someone else to be that guy. Stunt number 3, this is who Zach LaVine is. The hardest thing for fans to accept is when a player simply becomes who he's always been. We love to believe there's another level coming. That one off season, everything will finally click. The leadership will improve, the playoff success will come, and the superstar we've been waiting for will finally arrive. I think that's exactly how many people viewed Zach LaVine throughout his career. Every season, there was another reason to believe the leap was still coming. He was still young, he was recovering from an ACL injury, the roster wasn't good enough, the coaching staff wasn't right. Then all of a sudden it became, wait until he gets another all-star beside him. Then wait until Chicago builds a better team. But eventually those reasons ran out. At 30 years old and entering his 13th NBA season, I don't think we're waiting on another version of Zach LaVine anymore. I think we've already seen the best version. And that's not meant as an insult, because the best version of Zach LaVine is still a player most teams would love to have. He can score from anywhere on the floor, shoot nearly 40% from 3, explode for 40 points on any given night, and fit alongside any star because of how efficient he is on offense. The problem is that's no longer enough to make someone a franchise player in today's NBA. Teams don't build around pure scorers the way they once did. They build around players who control games, dictate winning, and consistently raise the level of everyone around them. That's why when Chicago finally decided to move on, there wasn't exactly a league-wide bidding war to bring him in as someone's next cornerstone. Instead, he landed in Sacramento, a team that's still searching for direction itself. That to me says everything. There's 2 kinds of elite players in the league. There's stars and there's superstars, and there's a difference between the 2 that can't always be measured with points per game or shooting percentages. Zach LaVine reached heights that 99% of NBA players never will. 2 All-Star appearances, multiple 20-point seasons, and an over $200 million contract is an incredible career by any standard. It just wasn't the career many envisioned when they watched one of the most athletic guards they'd ever seen enter the league. Sometimes a player doesn't fall short, sometimes he simply reached the highest level he was ever meant to reach, and it still doesn't change a franchise. For LaVine, I believe we've already seen his ceiling. All in all, I don't think Zach LaVine had a disappointing career. In fact, if you told a young player coming into the NBA that he'd become a two-time All-Star, average over 20 points for 8 different seasons, win multiple slam dunk contests, and earn a $215 million contract, he'd probably sign up for that career without thinking twice. The disappointment comes from the expectations. LaVine looked like someone who had all the ingredients to be one of the NBA's great superstars. Physically, he checked every box, but as the years went by, it became clear there was a difference between looking like a superstar and actually becoming one. Chicago gave him 8 seasons to prove he could lead a franchise, and by the end of that run, I think everyone had their answer. That's why I believe we've already seen the best version of Zach LaVine. Not because he's washed or incapable of helping a team, but because he's already become exactly what he was meant to be, a really good NBA star. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. He's just not the player you build an entire organization around. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept isn't that a player failed, it's that they succeeded, just not at the level everyone once imagined. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.